engineers and architects to continue the tradition that was established nearly 40 years ago in this community. That tradition is a review process that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and democratic meetings. To achieve that goal, meeting procedures have been adopted by the Commission. A copy of the procedures is available at the back of the room on each agenda. As always, it is the intent of the Commission to help manage the development and growth of the City of Lake Forest with a keen sense of preserving the historic structures and open space in the city for all its present and future residents. Our goal is to move each petition before us tonight through a review process as quickly as possible while balancing the interests of the petitioners, neighboring property owners, and the larger community. Good evening. I'm Bill Ransom. I'm sitting in as chairman tonight for Curt Pairitz, who we're expecting at some point, but we're going to get the meeting started. Also here for the commission this evening.
Mary Ellen Swenson.
Guy Berg.
Fred Moyer.
And for the city staff.
Kathy Cerniak.
The first item we have on our agenda this evening is approval of the May 3rd minutes for the May 3rd joint meeting of the Park and Rec Board and the HPC. My understanding is we do not have the April 25th, 2012 minutes. Has all the commissioners had a chance to review the minutes? Do I have any changes or corrections to the minutes?
Nope.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Okay, motion made, second. Seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Minutes are approved. Okay. The next item we have on the agenda for this evening is on our consent agenda. It's a continuing consideration of our Certificate of Appropriateness for an addition to an existing structure with a building scale variance and landscape plan located at 1296 North Green Bay Road. Since it's on the consent agenda, we can take this without presentation and comment. However, if somebody would like removed for full presentation, they should speak now. Does anybody want this removed for full presentation? Okay, hearing nothing, we'll take it on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the Certificate of Appropriateness?
So moved.
Okay, the motion's been made. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the consent agenda item is approved. Okay. Now moving to the next item, we have a request for a Certificate of Appropriateness approving signage for a new retail business, Pasquesi Home and Gardens on the square located at 695 Northwestern Avenue. Is the petitioner here and ready to proceed? Okay, if you could come up and use the microphone, introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Mike Pasquesi with Pasquesi Home and Gardens. And tonight we're requesting approval of new signage for the site at 695 Northwestern Avenue. And we are proposing a monument sign which would be facing Western Avenue, and a wall sign which would be facing the railroad tracks. And I'd like to, does this work so I can show you? So the monument sign would be located in the southern portion of the planting bed along Western Avenue. And I have several pictures here just to give you reference. As far as the material that would be used for the sign, it would be a a painted aluminum post and panel sign. It would have vinyl applied letters, and the proposed height of the sign would be 4 feet 2 inches, and the width would be 4 feet. And here's more of a close-up view of it. The proposed wall sign would be mounted on the east side of the building. And it would be located on the left side of the door, centered on the wall. Again, the sign would be a painted aluminum with vinyl applied letters. The measurements of the sign would be 3 feet wide and 2 feet tall. The colors of the signs are consistent with our corporate colors, which you'd find at our location in Lake Bluff. At this point, I just open it up for any questions or comments that you
Okay,
have for
we
me.
may have a couple questions for you. I'm sorry, I probably should have asked, I know I should have asked beforehand, but is there any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that anybody wants to disclose? Okay, we'll take a report from the city staff, and then we may have some questions for you. Kathy?
Just a few brief comments. First, welcome to Pasquazi's. If you haven't been by the warming house on the west side of the railroad tracks, they are in, and it certainly is a bright spot of color in the central business district. Staff has worked with the Pasquazi's over the last couple months on signage, looking at various options. And the signs proposed do meet the code. Really, it seems like with all of the outdoor displays, the signage almost becomes less of a focal point, especially with all those flowers out there. Staff does support this request. We were out there a number of times looking at different size signs, and the sign has gotten smaller, and looking at heights. The sign on the wall on the east side of the train station, if you're getting off the train immediately adjacent to that building, it seems large, but it seems more importantly that sign is intended to be viewed from the other side of the railroad tracks, from people standing on that platform. We would love to get rid of the Metra sign that's immediately on the other side of the door. We haven't been successful in doing that yet, but we will continue to do that. Staff does support this request, and we believe it's a really wonderful addition to our central business district.
Okay, thank you. Does any commissioner have any questions for city staff or the petitioner?
I have a question. In the photo that we have, the sign looks significantly smaller than it did on the screen. Is that because it's the other side of the building? I have this photo, and it looks
If you could
smaller
use
than
the
the one that
microphone,
you
please.
showed us on the overhead. Which is
It's
the,
about a brick smaller, I counted it myself.
did?
It might be
Does it
that
look
there's
smaller?
a process photo. Is this?
okay.
That was.
If you could step up and use the microphone, please.
I'm Lisa Pasquazi.
Hi.
That one was taken from standing further away.
Okay.
How is that sign being affixed to the brick there?
It's according to our designer, based off of this, which you should have in the packet. It's I'm sorry, it's concealed with concealed fasteners. I don't know if that helps you.
Well, we want them concealed, yes. We're just kind of wondering what kind. City staff also said that a number of different size signs were looked at, and Kathy, you can comment on it also. I'm wondering how this sign was determined and whether, smaller signs were looked at. And the mock-up that's out there now, that we see out there now, that's the size and shape that it's gonna be, is that correct?
We really look to Kathy for guidance on this, the city, so, we did try larger sizes and just felt they were too overpowering. And then, as Kathy said, we felt that this size, worked when you were looking at it from across the tracks. I mean, we'd certainly be open to any suggestions that the board would have.
Kathy, in the central business district, do we have other monument signs for commercial businesses, or would this be unique?
This really isn't a monument sign in that it's a sign on two posts. Monuments usually have a substantial base.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at various different types of signs. Because of the donor plaques on the west side wall, I believe there's at least two and there may be three across. It didn't seem like affixing signage to that wall was appropriate. We looked at something taller. And it just seemed like with the flowers and the color being dominant, keeping a sign low to the ground that really was visible from Market Square was appropriate. The sign did get smaller, it did get lower, and it just seemed that this choice of sign really was subtle. I think very quickly, everyone is gonna know that Pasquesi is in that building.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, I'm sorry, Fred?
No, a question about the vinyl lettering, which you indicated would be applied. Just a question about the permanence of that application. What could you tell us about that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I don't know if
I understood from the presentation that the lettering would be vinyl and applied to the aluminum background.
Correct.
And I'm visualizing what that might be, and I'm not sure I'm visualizing it correctly. So my first question is about permanence and how it is adhered, or whether, in fact, there are some examples that you could share with us of similar designs in the area.
What I know of it is it's an all-weather vinyl. I don't know the exact adhesive used to apply it, and I'm trying to think of some. I don't have any examples, but it is something that I could get a sample.
Are there other signs like this at other locations?
At our locations, no,
Okay,
because
so this
we
would be
use
unique.
a raised lettering that's cut aluminum, raised letters.
It is a raised lettering.
No, the signs that we have at our other locations are, so I don't have an example to show you from our location. I would have to get with our designer and get a sample for the board.
Well, that would be a question, because the vinyl lettering that I am familiar with, and that may not be all the vinyl lettering that there is a very thin membrane. It's laser cut. So it's very accurate in terms of the image that is achieved, but it is a very thin film and adhered to a surface. And part of the success would depend on how smooth that surface is and how it is adhered. So it's a question of whether, over what period of time it will be stable.
Right.
That's my question.
Mm-hmm. I can get you the answer.
Kathy, I think Fred brings up a good point. What do we have as far as ordinances or enforcement to see if the sign becomes in disrepair or, you know, the lettering falls off? What powers does the city have to take remedial action?
We do have, in our code, we do require routine maintenance. Certainly, if something was falling into disrepair, we do try and follow up. People aren't always responsive, but I think we've had some situations where we've requested replacement of awnings, materials like that. I think that this is obviously a new venture, both for the city and for Pasquesi's. We really haven't had a retail use in that building for a very long time. So I think, certainly if the sign didn't wear well, I think we, and the business is a success, I think we would be very quickly having further discussions, and I think the Pasquazis would be the first ones to bring that up.
Okay, great.
I have to say, oh, sorry, I have to say thank you for coming to the square. It's a beautiful addition, I really think it looks fabulous, and I hope to get more flowers from my husband as you leave the train. Thank you very much.
Is anything else from any other commission?
There's no lighting associated with this at the time, is there?
No.
Okay. At this point, we'd like to invite any members of the public who have, give them an opportunity to comment on the petition. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak? Seeing none, we now have an opportunity to discuss among ourselves and take action. I also think that's a great addition to Market Square, and it's gonna be, you know, it looks beautiful out there right now, and I like the sign. You know, obviously, there's always a concern about what's the appropriate size to give both impact but not be overbearing, and I think you've probably struck, at least I feel you've struck the right balance the way it is. I'm confident that, you know, if the sign isn't working out, if it needs some repair, that you'll be a good neighbor and work with the city to get that fixed. So, anybody else?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. I actually think it's kind of elegant, and it has kind of a garden ornament feature. I mean, I think it's a really good fit. It's scaled nicely for the building that's in back of it. And I like the idea that it's up on some elegant supports. It's kind of references the high school sign a little bit, and on Wednesday, and these older signs that just seem to have become more of antique. The monument signs I'm not really that crazy about anyway, with the big hulking bases. They kind of look like grave markers. So I like this one. And I guess the idea of this vinyl application, it's to simulate painted on lettering, I think is the idea. So Fred's concerns about durability, of course, I think you should take into consideration here. And I basically like everything. And I guess I did forget to ask one question as I drove by rather slowly, and I thought the scale was great, but I didn't see any poppies out there, so I don't know if you plan on getting any of those in, or you might think about that. So that's all for me.
Okay. Any other discussion? Do I have a motion from somebody regarding this?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we pass the petition as submitted with some of the advisory comments by some of the commissioners as far as durability. I'm sure staff can handle that with the petitioner.
Okay. The motion's been made to grant the certificate of appropriateness. Do I have a second? It's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That petition is passed. Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. The next petition is a continued petition for consideration of expansion of the scope of a previously approved additions and alterations to the residence at 142 South Stonegate Road. Is the petitioner with us today? Yeah, there we go. And I see you have a model. If you just want to bring it up here, that'd be fine. We can make room for it on the
Modifying the churches.
yeah.
It was stone to match the front door. Yeah, it was a stone, but we saw wood timbers first.
Well, we can ask the petitioner to clarify those things.
Okay, good evening.
Can you just give us one more second, Mary Ellen? Did you want to see this?
Yeah.
right, sorry, go ahead, if you'd like to proceed. Thanks for giving us the time to look at it.
So what we've done since,
Oh, I'm sorry. I made this mistake before, and I don't mean to cut you off. Again, is there any ex parte communications or conflict of interest that you'd like to, that any commission? Seeing none, please proceed. Thank you much.
so since we previously were before the commission, we've made several revisions to the project, looking through meetings both from the past, commission meeting in, January, I believe it was, and then previous to that, the original meeting in November. So we've made alterations to the project that we believe will meet the commission's needs and also, the needs of our, client. So to go through those quickly for you, in the garage addition, we've revised the existing east-facing dormer to be similar to the existing, the existing dormers adjacent to the turret. So this dormer on the east side of the garage has been, made slightly narrower, which brought the roofs, down somewhat and minimized the massing of that element on the garage elevation. But the detailing remains similar to the existing dormers on either side of the turret. The north-facing dormer is revised to be similar in massing to the existing west dormers. Previously, that dormer popped through the eave line. We've made that dormer more subservient, pushed it back up on the roof, more in keeping with what was on the west side of the garage. And then on the west side of the garage, we revised the roof shape of those existing dormers. Existing dormers, location remained, but the roof shape is changed to a gable, and also the fenestration was changed so that the entire element is more in keeping with itself. And we don't have several different dormer styles on one element. We also lowered the garage, the addition to the garage, the eave line, as suggested by the commission. We lowered it back down. It's about 6 inches lower than where it was when it lined up. What this does is allow some subserviency to the addition itself, breaking up the roof massings, and allowing the addition to read as a lesser part of the residence. Over at the master bedroom addition, so back at the original meeting, there was discussion about the wood columns that were proposed and perhaps looking at masonry. We went back and looked at that, certainly going through this winter and seeing the adverse weather conditions that could occur on this site. We felt that perhaps a better way to go would be using some masonry in this location. It gave some more permanence to the structure and avoided any potential rot and decay that may happen with a wood column. And so that's what you're seeing in the master bedroom section of the proposal. The masonry openings at the master bedroom, we've detailed them similar to the main entry. So it will be basically a brick structure with a limestone surround that matches what's going on at the front entry door. So details and materials, proposed gable dormer detailing is to match existing, or I should say, the details are to match existing, but the dormer itself is similar. This presents a unified aesthetic upon approaching the house, so you have a similar dormer look as you approach the outer core of the residence. The majority of garage dormers maintain a subservient aesthetic, so they're set back on the roof. And the proposed roof shape and fenestration was used to create consistency, as I mentioned, throughout the garage wing. As you can see here, again, the areas of work are these two additions on either end of those wings. What we're looking at here is the east elevation of the garage, again with a dormer that's similar to what's adjacent to the turrets. So it's a dormer that pops the eave line, uses the masonry that is on the face of this wall, brings it up through the dormer. Similar masonry detailing around the roof, similar Juliet balcony railing. And then the relationship of the dormer and the opening below is reminiscent of what else is going on in the residence. You will see this pop-through dormer with either a window or door below it, and that's echoed here with this existing door that was remaining. You can see the addition eave line is lowered, again breaking up the massing, but also allowing this addition to look as if it's subservient and it does not try to compete with the existing structure. The north elevation. So here you can see that existing dormer that we're referring to adjacent to the turret. What we've done, we've revised this dormer on the north elevation to, again, like I said, be subservient. It sits up on the roof. You can see here the lowered eave line and how it allows the massing of the residence behind the reed. And I'll take just a minute to show you this side elevation of the dormer, because I know there was concerns about the relationship there. I just want to address that a bit. And I will show that also in the section later on. But the roof slope of the garage is a lesser slope than what it is at the main section of the house, or even at the master bedroom wing. There's about 3 or 4 different roof pitches on this residence. This is 1612 at the master bedroom, about 2012. So that, coupled with the fact that the dimension between the eave going to shingle the sidewall of the dormer in the same material that we're shingling the roof, so it'll be slate, and that allows the dormer to better blend with the roof structure. Also, as viewed from the north elevation, the dormers to the west and the dormer to the east read a little bit more similar. Over to the west elevation, again, these are 3 existing dormers proposed to revise the roof shape and the fenestration in those as well. And again, you can see the lowered eave-line from the west. This is the section I was referring to, so you can see here we're cutting through the garage section. You can see the floor plate to eave-line is 1'11", or the main section of the house, which is actually this is showing you that's a master bedroom, so it's 2'7" eave-line floor plate. So because of those conditions, we can't exactly match the detailing, or I shouldn't say the detailing. We can't exactly match the relationship of the dormer to the eave, but we are matching the detailing in front of the dormer. Over at the master bedroom wing, again, you can see these dormers that we're trying to reference over at the garage. But we have the masonry element here, surrounded by limestone, similar to what's at the main section of the house. Nothing else on this addition has changed from our original proposal. Again, seeing it from the end. And then from the front, this is what the side that would face the auto court. So again, you see the other dormer that flanks the turret. So we're trying to create a fabric right off the auto court. Quickly, the floor plans, nothing really has changed here. The footprint of the building remains the same. So we still have that open porch, the garage addition. And on the second floor, it's a closet off the master bedroom, and this becomes a guest master suite. The eave line was only lowered 6 inches here rather than going down to a foot where we originally proposed it, due to this being a bathroom, and we need some taller walls here in this space to allow for mirrors and things like that. So it still is an intimate space, but I think lowering the eave line another 6 inches beyond where we're proposing right now would make that space too narrow in order to get those walls as tall as they might need to be. So at this time, I'd like to open it up to questions.
Okay, we're going to take a staff report first, and then we'll probably get back to you with a few things.
Thank you, Acting Chairman Ransom. Since this was before the commission in November of last year, the petitioners really have stepped back and decided that they really wanted to enhance the project. This lot is challenging due to the steep slope setback, and the petitioners have spent at least the last couple years working with engineering and really exploring all options for adding to the existing residence. In this presentation, the footprint of the building does not change from what was approved in November. But as Mr. Rosati described, there are changes to the dormers, changes to the columns, some of those in direct response to some comments earlier by the commission. The petitioners have met with staff on numerous occasions, really going through all sorts of alternatives to try and address some of the comments that the commission raised. And what's presented at this time really does seem to balance both the unique aspects of the house and some of the interior challenges with the commission's comments. Staff is recommending approval. You have a number of conditions of approval in your packet in the staff report. But we do feel that at this point, this project has probably been worked through to the extent that really many options have been considered, and this seems to be the best solution to really achieve a goal that's really important to the petitioners and to really preserve the integrity of this residence.
Okay, thank you. At this time, inquire if any commissioners have any questions of the petitioner or city staff or request for clarification.
I have a question. We all noticed on the northeast elevation off the master bedroom, the change from the timber to brick. Can you walk us through why that change was made again? And
Absolutely.
just refresh us with that whole swap?
Certainly.
Thanks.
As I mentioned, that was I believe a suggestion by Commissioner Berg, that we perhaps look at the use of masonry. And so in the modeling of the element, we did look at the masonry. At that time, we still felt that perhaps the wood was the direction to go. Given the amount of time that's passed since November, we have been working on the project, trying to move forward with some of the things that we knew we could move forward with. And one of those was investigating that material. And again, going through the winter with the project, the homeowner was very attuned to what was happening in that area and noticed that, a lot of moisture, they're in the woods, so it doesn't have a lot of opportunity to dry out. And they were concerned that the wood perhaps would deteriorate over time, and nobody wants that, because what is that going to look like? And so the direction was then to say, hey, let's look at what this masonry really could be, what else could we do with it? And so we went that direction with the masonry and thought we could perhaps echo the front entry using the limestone surround to really kind of tie that masonry element in with what else is going on in the residence. So it was more or less a subject of longevity.
The plan's beautiful. It really has come together nicely. I like it a lot.
I just have a question. First thing is, we see the model, and it's great to see the model, because I think that really helps a lot. I hope it helped you when you were working on the upgrades or the embellishments. On the model, we see the bricks printed on the Strathmore board, and they don't have the limestone moldings that the front door has. So you're proposing tonight to go with something similar to the front door, then, I assume?
That's correct.
Or are you still debating on how to
No, it's
articulate that?
absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's up to you guys, I guess.
Right, but in the interest of, we had the brick already modeled in that matter, so we didn't remodel that section.
Yeah.
Simply because it was a minor change we felt. So the massing is still there. We can read what, the size hasn't changed. It really just is the trim around the opening, which is, so what's proposed in your drawings is what we're proposing today.
I thought again, as I looked at it last time tonight, that when I pulled up, I was wondering, if you had it in wood, and so much of the house is brick, that to insert wood for a porch, that language is probably somewhat appropriate when you conjure that up in your mind. But on the front like this, that's the first thing you pass by, and it just seemed like that house has so much masonry on its roof and walls that the timber would seem a little spindly, perhaps so. And I looked at the stone casing is really kind of what it is around the front door, and it has kind of a rope detail on the inside edge, and then it's rather flat for the remaining almost 3/4 or more of it. And you're intending to replicate that? Is that what you're thinking for the?
That would be the idea.
Okay. And now the dormers, I think I get your strategy overall is to sort of make them all more elegant on the house. And on the back of the house, which would be, I think, the south elevation, is it the south? Actually, if we flip this around, I like everything you guys are doing. I think this is really, and you got approval from us last time, if I remember, and read in the step. Basically, we just made some suggestions, and you've had time to consider things.
Originally in November it was approved. Since then we've expanded the project to include revisions to the dormers on the garage.
Yeah, but I mean, basically you're just working through
Correct.
something. It appears on these existing dormers on the back, they more or less match the ones on the front of the house, the existing, and I'm speaking specifically about the length of brick on each side of the window. I'm not sure if it's a brick and a half, but let's just, say whatever that is. And on your proposed dormers, the change out that you propose for the rear, boy, this model makes this really easy to do. Over here,
Yeah.
this is really basically the same locations of the existing dormers, right?
It's actually the same dormer.
The same dormer.
We're just
These
proposing
here,
replacing the
correct?
fenestration and the roof.
Yeah, I see there's.
I was
less-
just wondering, it looks like that you've decided to go with a thinner reveal of brick on each side of the window casing. And
It's-
I'm just wondering, is that,
It's not masonry.
it's not, that's going to be wood?
Correct. Just
Okay.
as it is right now, it's wood trim.
And you're inserting the,
It's probably a 5/4
uh-huh.
by 6 board.
Okay. It's interesting that the wider masonry seems to be a better proportion and fit. I don't know, I'm just offering that up to you now. I think that's all my questions for the time being.
Following along on that same discussion of dormers, in the elevation that I'm looking at, it appears that, at least it's the side view of these, of the dormer, that it is a wood shingle on the vertical face as well as the roof.
It's slate. The roof is slate, so the side wall of the dormer would also be slate.
But I'm seeing the same symbol, and maybe just a graphic technique in the drawing is exactly the same,
It looked, I agree
fill.
with you.
The fill is the same, but so my question is it in fact the same material? The fill is the same everywhere?
Yes. Our pochette looks like wood shakes, but we didn't have a slate poche, but the idea was whatever the roof shingles are, the sidewall of the dormers would be the same. And currently it's slate, so the sidewall, it's a slate shingled roof, so the sidewall of the dormers would also be a slate shingle.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, hearing none, this is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the petition. Is there anybody here who would like to, please come up to the microphone, identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Cox. My husband's sitting back there. We live at
Could you repeat it again?
Yeah, we live at 123 Stonegate Road.
Okay.
We're the only house that passes theirs daily. We're really their only visible neighbor, so we're just to the east. And our neighbors were nice enough to share all their plans with us because you never sent us an announcement that there was a meeting here tonight. So had they not been so forthcoming, we wouldn't have known. But anyway, we are in complete agreement with everything they're doing. I've been in the interior design business for 25 years. So, we all appreciate the aesthetics and trying to get symmetry and some rhythm. And I think the architect's done a great job, and we'll all be happy with the project. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public? Hearing none, it's now an opportunity for a commissioner to ask any further questions or discuss this petition. I'll just say that, our missing chairman this evening likes to say, we don't want to design these things for the architect and homeowner. It's always nice when our suggestions are acted upon and they're taken to heart. So I certainly like the revised petition that is before us and would vote to approve it.
Yeah, I like all the changes and improvements. I might ask you to give a little more thought to the distance on the side of those arch windows. So it looks a little bit too thin, but that's not anything I want to get into a condition. I just think it takes something away from the elegance of those windows. And I know it's a different material, but shapes and things like that might be worth taking a look at. I think you got plenty of room between the dormers too. And I like the switch to masonry, and I think, for that matter, I'm in support of the petition.
I support the changes as well.
Looks beautiful.
Okay. Hearing general consensus, do I have a motion? And whoever's making the motion, just want to know if those include the conditions that are in the staff report. Anyone? I can't make the
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the petition as resubmitted, I guess, and include in that motion the staff report conditions.
Okay, the motion having been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that petition passed. Thank you very much. If you'd like to come up here and get this, we appreciate it. Good luck. Okay. The next item on our agenda for this evening is, again, a continued petition for consideration of request for a certificate of appropriateness for the fence, entrance gate, and landscaping located at 925 North Lake Road. Is the petitioner ready to proceed? Again, is there any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest that any commissioner wants to disclose? Hearing none?
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Michael Gould, and I'm an architect, and my client, Mr. Bozard, is here tonight. And we're back again from last meeting on trying to get the approval of a fence that at first we designed as a fin fence, and the commission didn't like that idea. It was too modern for the appropriateness of the lot. We have now changed to listening to the advice of the panel here and going and putting masonry piers in. I read the report from the staff, which suggests removing the masonry piers along the 7'6" setback in the front. In consideration of that, we will agree with the staff. We will remove those and stipulate to have those removed. However, we request to keep one of them, and that would be right at the entranceway. And what that means on that 7'6", that is the natural ending of the metal fence that will go design-wise, locating the front entrance in the gate area exactly as the staff has recommended. By removing that one piece of masonry, that column, you've taken away the emphasis of that front, because we purposely have taken the gate and marched it back about 41 feet from the street. And anyone driving by, if they just see a black gate or a black fence, as an example, there's no ending to it. And it would bring a little confusion, especially in the evening. I think it'd be a dangerous point. So by having that masonry here, it gives you the prestige of what this lot is certainly valid to have. Being on the lake side of Lake Road, we're going to do extensive remodeling on the existing home that was built in 1956. And the direction why we went to the fin fence was consideration of what we were thinking of doing in remodeling the home, of which now we have done about face and are much more traditional. And the idea that we did put the masonry columns in there along that line was to have, as one of our panel members has mentioned, frozen music, and that was the idea of having a crescendo to get up to the front entrance gate. And as Frank Lloyd Wright has stated many times, that was the idea of the frozen music. But putting that aside, listening to what the staff members want, leading into the landscaping, we did take that into consideration because we placed these columns, which are only 16 inches wide, almost 20 feet apart. So that's why they were proposed at that spacing. But however, we have, my owner and my client, have agreed to remove them and stipulate that for approval this evening, and just are requesting to just leave that one column, so that would be 3 columns to the right and 3 columns to the left of the entrance. And it would be the one column we're talking about is the one, as I mentioned, on the 7'6" property line, set back 7'6", so that that fence, metal fence, will terminate in that brick pier, which is an essential part of the design. And if I may say so, I have over 40 years of architectural experience in some of the biggest architectural firms here in the city, including Frank Lloyd Wright's studio. And I will put my reputation on the line with this committee that that column should remain. It's a very essential part and gives the entrance the prestige that is warranted. My client also, if you notice in the petition, is now rethought the idea of those columns that are existing, those brick columns that the committee was feeling should remain. We are going to take them down and rebuild them, and that is clearly shown. So bottom line, I think we're we want to give you everything. I'm only asking for one column. As an architect to say my qualifications, I hope, are enough to say it. Please let us have that column. And it frames in, by the way, not only stops the metal fence and locates the entrance, but it also frames in the landscaping, which is quite extensive, that my client is proposing to do. The landscaping plan has been thoroughly gone over, and it's an amazing improvement in the neighborhood. And you'll see I will return here with some drawings for remodeling the home, that this is a prestigious lot, and it is going to remain that way and certainly going to be upgraded. And I think the village, or the city of Lake Forest, will be very proud when we're finished, and I think this committee will be also. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. City staff report?
This petition does come back to you since your discussion last month. At At that meeting, you did hear of the owner's need for additional security. You did talk about whether the existing entrance pillars could be repaired, and as you just heard, that those pillars that are located between the two existing garages are now proposed to remain. In the last, when this came before you in the past, they were proposed for removal. The type of fence now proposed is more consistent with Lake Road and the Historic District. The recommendation to remove some of the brick pillars was simply that it just appeared a bit heavy along the streetscape to preserve the views into this house, kind of to that second layer. It seemed appropriate to consider removal of some of those bricks, the brick pillars. There is a condition that speaks to the lighting. There is lighting located on the existing pillars. Additional lighting is proposed on the new entrance pillars. Lake Road is a dark street, so the condition really speaks to, number one, making sure that the source of the light itself is shielded. Our code does require that the source of the light, the bulb essentially, is not visible, and the glass proposed is now frosted. But also importantly is the intensity of the light. So after installation, we would want to make sure that if the intensity needed to be adjusted downward, so it's not a bright spot of light on Lake Road, an interrupting spot of light, that would be addressed. You do have a number of conditions in your staff report, and we look for your input and direction on the fences now proposed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now it's an opportunity for the commission to ask questions. Fred?
Yes, I have a question. I appreciate all the things you said about this one column that's very important. I can't find it.
You can't find the column?
I'm looking at your drawings and I'm looking at the elevation.
Would you like to use the document camera to?
I'm not sure what the story
Oh,
is
I'm
about
sorry, I
this
thought
column.
they
I can't find
was
it.
right there, me. You don't,
Just right there if you want to lay it.
what should I do?
Just put it right on there, and you can kind of point to what you're,
Where?
Here's the pointer right in the middle there. That's where I can.
Well, if I can see that, it'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, I can, yeah. When you come from the gate, on each side of the gate is a 2-foot square column.
Yes.
Then you go to each side is another column.
And that's the 1 foot 4 inch
And
column.
then, and the one, oh, I see, oh, yes. Technology. Okay. These are 2-foot square columns. Then we have another column right here, which is 16 inches, 1 foot.
You're not
4.
back that far, you're forward. You come down a little bit,
The
right?
one I'm talking about is this column right here,
All right.
on each side, so that now we just have a simple fence going through, and it's a termination point, stopping it, so when someone driving down the street can see this is the end, and this is where you would be going in. To eliminate that, this would just be a fence going back, and this would be not a good way to terminate this fence. And second of all, it doesn't, as the staff has recommended, they want to emphasize where the entrance is, so people driving by, especially in the evening, can see something's changed here. There's a column here. And I want to emphasize to you that this column, and this column has been detailed to match the existing columns that are up in this area. That's what we're talking about, this one, and that one. And they exactly are detailed to match these so that it's a proper relationship with the home.
Okay, now
And
I
kept the
understand.
historic value.
I understand now.
Yeah, that's the one, this one and that one.
Thank you. Second question, as long as I'm
Do you need
talking.
this?
It was about the fence itself. Previously, there was a flat plate sort of stock proposed for the fence at 2 inches apart, et cetera.
Yeah, we're
Tell us
5
now
and a
about-
quarter
Tell
now.
us what you're proposing now. I'm seeing in the drawing an indication of something that is different from that, but the drawing has been reduced so much I
We
really
got
find
5 and a quarter, and it's 3/4 inch stiles in there. Pickets.
You said 5 and a quarter?
5 and a
Space-
quarter
that's the
spacing, yes. We've increased the spacing quite a bit.
Is it the same bar stock as before?
No, that was a fin design. Now, this is 3/4 inch square.
3/4 by 3/4?
Yeah, a square,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what I'm
It's
asking.
it's a normal,
Yeah.
we're going back to a normal fence.
Correct. Now, are the tops having a fluted detail or only?
That is going to match the existing, I provided a picture of the existing that was up there, and
Okay.
we're duplicating that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question can I follow up?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's really transformed a lot since the last time we saw it. I think it's improved considerably in its whole, it's kind of statement to the street, and I think in its service to the house as well. I'm pleased to see that. Just to refresh, I too had a little trouble seeing this because I've got 2 pairs of glasses on now to read this little plan. So it's a little hard to understand, but I think I've got your concept down. Your elevation has a series of match lines in it that are throwing off the proportion with the relationship to the plan that, I think
That is what what you're seeing right here is we're stipulating not to put those in. All those brick columns I stated, we will not put in.
Okay.
We stipulate to take them out, the staff wants them out, they're 20
Okay.
feet
And,
apart.
yeah,
Essentially, the landscaping bleeds into it as they want. However, if, we're willing to say we'll take them out and call it a day. I mean, there's no debating about it. As long as I can keep the 1 column on each side to
Okay.
emphasize the entrance,
And-
that's
and
all.
a
That's
question
my
for
only caveat.
Okay. Well, a question for staff, Kathy, the concern about the installation of the piers right along that nearer fence line was that they would interfere with the view through to the yard and the house and so forth,
And perhaps have some heaviness to it, given essentially the double gate.
the double fence, yeah,
Uh,
okay.
We agree that the plan is difficult to read, so some of that might
Yeah.
be part of the,
Well, but I think
difficulty.
it's a diagram that's really useful for purposes of discussion right now. I'm getting more comfortable with it as I heard that Fred was having some similar problems. I feel a little better now. Now, the piers on the house now, the ones that are set back by the garage, are those also 2-foot dimension piers?
Yes.
Okay, so you're gonna feature those, you'd like to feature those
I'm
on
only using them on
each
the
si-
sides of the gate for
each side of the
stability of the gate area.
Okay.
And the rest, we've toned down to 16 inches, 1'4".
Right, and then you wanna keep the 2 flankers that are in line with the 2-foot piers.
Yes.
And then the ones that come forward to make outside corners, you wanna have those be brick as
Just-
6,
yes.
at 1'4" as
Absolutely.
well. Okay,
That emphasizes the entrance. And
okay,
if you have the landscaping plan there, you'll see the extensive landscaping that will be inside there. Yeah, it really lends to a wonderful experience going into that home.
Okay.
And let people know when they pass the gate, there's gonna be extensive landscaping that's shown.
One thing I noticed in your plan, I think it was brought up last month, and it was an interesting comment, I think our chairman made it, that being able to insert another fence out further between, out in front at the street level was gonna be an interesting exercise, to make it seem appropriate. And I think it's interesting that you've set up this indentation the way you have, because I was wondering about that effect too. And I know this is just your first drafted drawing, but if I kind of extrapolate with a straight edge, this first indentation, maybe you could show your plan. If you could push your plan back up on the screen a little bit, I think you're gonna need to adjust it. That's the elevation. If you could scoot that up a little more. Yeah, right where your finger is, you see that?
You're talking right in this area here?
No.
That's an existing.
No, let me finish talking. Go over to the indentation that you have further, right there, yeah, if you follow that line up toward the garage,
Yes.
straight on up, just push that, it appears that that wants to line up, and I think that's an interesting
Yeah.
first move. Just stay there for a minute. I mean, that's, I think, a key to make this fence work with the composition behind it. It's sort of like the game the French designers would play. It sort of frames the view behind. And I notice on your other side, that fence doesn't seem to line up with anything anymore. I imagine that's a drafting
No, that was
nuance
too-
that you're gonna
that really
address.
was too far, well,
I was just thinking, it might be nice for you to incorporate that alignment when you develop your design. I kind of like that approach, and so forth with that. And I think that if you replicate the bayonet top fence, I think that's an interesting.
well, let's say this to you. I can't fully answer that because I know it lines up over here, but if these two garages are symmetrical with this driveway,
It should line up on both
it
sides.
should be.
Yeah, well, and I think you can shake that out. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that approach, I mean, rather than indiscriminately maybe make it 10 feet over, I think that, Kathy, I'm thinking that's a good solution here on how to meld these two together. And I noticed with the existing piers on the house, that the two main piers on the existing house, those are taller than the flanking ones on each side
Yes.
of it.
Yes,
Now, when you go to your elevation, you show basically uniform height brick piers. I know
because
you're
we can
gonna,
only go 7 feet is the code. Everything has to be 7 feet or below.
right, I know that.
And those columns you're referring to are about 8 feet high.
The ones on the house now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
existing.
that's fine. What I'm saying is there was a distinction between the heights of the column, of the piers
Oh, okay.
on the
yeah.
existing. So, working with your front gate here, I see that the 2-foot-high piers you'd wanna make those the tallest piers that you'd feature in this new fence.
Well, no, we're making those all the same because the gate also has to be, the height of the gate has to be 7 feet. And the height of the top part of the gate is 7 feet. That's maximum to go.
Yeah, at the top of your serpentine curve.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so it's starting to drop down a little bit.
So the tiers are about top of that, oh boy.
Okay.
Let's see.
Okay, so the desire is to have a 7-foot-high fence along Lake Road? Is that what?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So that pops back up.
It's 6'8", actually, the fence is 6'8".
Okay. Okay, I think
And we
I'm getting it.
purposely set it back to 7'6", rather than going to the property line, which is, by code, we could do that, but we would like to set it back. And, again, the gate area itself is quite a bit back, over 40,
Yeah.
I think 41 feet.
Okay, at the intermediate, where the piers are going to be removed along the Lake Road, where the
Yes.
brick piers would be removed, are you proposing to put in just a continuation of the metal
Yes,
intermediate posts?
Yes, it's just as shown on our detail, 2.5 by 2.5 inch steel column in between each, just as
Okay.
shown. We just eliminate the brick.
Okay, I think that's the end of my questions by now. Okay.
I'm sorry you can't see that
That's
small
all right, I'm
card,
just,
but we had
in
to
order to
reduce
give
it,
you good
as a-
feedback, I just wanted to ask some
I have a
clarification.
full size print of it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
This must be a nice project to work on. It's a beautiful spot. I wasn't at the last meeting. I wish I could talk you out of keeping the second fence, the one toward the front door,
Okay.
you know, the fence toward the east.
Oh. The one on towards the
Yeah.
property line?
Can you just
Yes, I could
give me a
tell you-
reason for keeping that? There's
The
I-
owner's here, but I'll try to.
Okay. I mean, I would
my
maybe
client is
understand if
here.
it was a long windy driveway that you would have two fences, but they're so close. I
They're not
just,
close, that's not, are you talking about by the garage?
yeah,
Close, oh, okay.
it's close to the gate by the street.
Well-
I mean, they're so close to each other. It's an awful lot of fencing. I feel like the flow of the yard and just the whole flow of the spot would just be so much more enhanced by
Okay.
removing more iron in that
I
section.
appreciate you were not here at the last meeting, so I'm gonna try to give you some background here. First of
Yeah,
all,
I read the
there's a
minutes and
har-
I wasn't convinced.
Pardon?
I read the minutes and I wasn't
Oh,
convinced.
well, there's a hardship there. First of all, my client has a young child and certainly did not want him to play on the east side, which is on the lake side. There's really no place for that. The front of the house has a full driveway, blacktop driveway. And when you come to that column, there's no place else for her to go. And he's had some security issues in the home. And the idea of the extensive landscaping, which is certainly good for the city of Lake Forest as well as any of the neighbors, is that at least he can have a place to go with some grass and to enjoy his property. And second of all, one of the things about having a fence over there, this is a very prestigious piece of property. And any extensive travel in Europe will always find mansions, which this home will be, that have a stately fence in front of it and going down the street of Lake Road. I've seen many fences and tall fences that the design-wise certainly give it the appropriateness of a nice piece of property, which this is. This isn't just another piece of property. This is a extensively beautiful property, and the owner is going to put extensive amounts of money into the east side of the home, as well as landscaping and remodeling the home, as I mentioned earlier. So it's quite a beautiful entrance to come through, and there is a nice sized drive going from that gate before you get to those pillars. And it's going to be quite an experience when all that landscaping is in, which that plan shows. And it's, well, I would say it will be a beautiful experience and a wonderful enhancement to the property. Because I noticed some of the homes around there have no fence whatsoever. The one next door has a fence which is probably 8 feet high, just a concrete wall. And what we've done is taken our fence and putting it so that it's in line with that fence, or very close to being in line with it, so it's not, or, we didn't want to be obtrusive
I understand.
of putting it on the property line or things like that, and that's one of the reasons the gate is set back. We were talking about the light situation. That's never going to affect anything because it is back so far away from the street.
It's just a lot of fencing on the
Yeah,
size
right.
property that is available. And I feel it overwhelms the house a little bit, just the amount of fencing that you have in such a
Well, the home is
space.
going to be designed, it's going to be much more monumental when we're finished with it, okay?
I think
Appreciate
the
you.
property owner wants to explain what happened last
No,
time.
Good evening, I'm
Hi.
Mark Colzan, thank you.
Hi.
And, are you referring again to the inner?
The second fence.
The original, the original
yes,
fencing?
Yes.
That was the debate that we had last time. Now, I can appreciate your comments because I did want to remove that originally. The suggestion was made we leave that. Now, the condition of the existing columns is such that if we leave the columns, they have to be rebuilt in place. They're crumbling. But I would be interested in all of the commission's opinion because we struggled with the original recommendation of leaving that iron fencing. Did we just leave new columns as an architectural statement, or did we put the columns and the fencing back? So I would appreciate, because we struggled with the same question, but we thought we were understanding a recommendation from the committee that we leave that as is, rebuild it, but leave it in original state. So that's kind of how we got there, so.
Sorry to disagree with the committee, but
No,
I just feel like it's a lot of
and
iron, it's a lot of fencing going on, and looks like a double security
certainly,
lockdown
yeah.
situation, and it
There-
just looks like a lot.
Originally, a petition came to us suggesting that those columns be moved, or seeking to have those columns removed. There was some comments on the from commissioners regarding the architectural significance of those columns, even though they were later added. And I think that's what the petitioner is addressing.
We've all struggled with that concept, and I can go, and Michael, we can go either way.
Yeah.
And quite
If there's-
frankly, I am interested. This was a good dialogue the last time regarding that, so
Yeah,
I'm
I'm sorry,
still
I'm
open in my
sorry I
mind
missed
of
it. I'm
what's
sorry I'm
the
bringing it back up, but I
correct
just felt
appropriateness.
strongly that I needed to
Thank you.
talk about this again.
Thank you.
What if the columns were, maintained and a privet hedge of some sort was added instead of the fencing? Would you like some greenery and then the brick columns, if everyone wants the brick columns to stay? I just feel like it's a lot of iron.
The petitioner can comment about the landscaping that's gonna be in front of, those columns if they think it's appropriate at this time. If that addresses part of your concern, could one of you address that? I know we have a landscaping plan, but
Again, I think
what are you planning on doing in front of
the
those
comprehensive
columns?
landscape plan in the going back to the garage at that existing point would be for new ground cover, currently there's boxwood plantings around the garage, so we would enhance the boxwoods that need enhancing, but put new ground cover that matches the Van Zelst recommendation. But that being
Yeah, we
said,
have the
again, I don't,
landscape
the
plans,
recommendation
okay.
you just made, I'm trying to visualize, and I need some help.
Well, it just gives
Bec-
me the
because
impression of a very cold.
Would we leave the columns and take the fencing out and then
Right.
just enhance? You'd have the benefit of the columns from an architectural point of view. The iron is gone, but you'd have beautiful landscape to, so that's one thing I think.
That was a comment at our last meeting. The idea, I don't think I quite understood what you were saying.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it's okay.
You have to keep the columns there, and that connects the garages, which I totally agree with. And eliminating that fence, I understand what you're saying, there's two fences there, it seems, absolutely, I agree we should definitely remove that fence. I think we've been shown to remove it in our petition.
In the original,
Yeah.
but quite frankly, when the recommendation was made that they do enhance the visual, I agree with that the columns do make a good statement.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
And
the
the garage.
question of leaving the iron portion or taking it out, I can go either way.
Yeah,
I-
probably have further discussion among us regarding that
we
issue, and
could-
hopefully there will be some direction.
We
but-
could leave that as an open matter if we were
Right.
to get approval to proceed, as we rebuild those columns, then seek a final judgment, so to speak, on whether the iron goes back. Because at that point in time, then you'd have the real world, the fence is up,
Mhm.
the landscaping's going in. Do you then put the iron back, or does that stay out? I'd be very amenable to
Okay.
Well, I
seeking
appreciate your
that final.
flexibility. Thank you very much. It just
Oh,
feels very cold.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I've been struggling with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, it's great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, at this point, the public has an opportunity to comment on the petition. Is there any member of the public who would like to? Seeing none, time for final questions of the petitioner or city staff. I think we probably had the questions, maybe during our discussions, there'll be something further. When I was first saw this petition and you're addressing our comments from the last time, I also was wondering about the two fences, and, I looked around when I was driving around the city, tried to get some idea, whether it's appropriate or not, and as I did that, I couldn't find anything that I could particularly point to, but I became more comfortable with that setup. Putting in certainly some amount of landscaping, I think, is appropriate, but the question becomes how much. You don't wanna put in landscaping that then serves as a fence for those columns, because you then block this beautiful view into the motor coach and to the house beyond it, which is really, really significant. And so I kind of thought that leaving the iron fencing in place and between those columns was appropriate. That was my feeling about it. I also feel that removal of the columns as the city suggested with the petitioner's request of those 2 columns at the front entrance to set it off also seems to make quite a bit of sense. So that's where I'm falling on this. Is there any other?
Well, I think that, if I remember correctly, the concern expressed by a few people last time was that those existing brick piers are kind of integral with the house, the existing ones.
Yes.
And as far as the pickets between them, for me, I think that's, I'm kind of ambivalent about whether you have those or not. Once you put the fence out on the front, I don't know that they're necessarily historic, and I could be wrong on that. But for me, I don't know that I feel like digging in and making it keep the pickets, because they're not logical at a certain point. You may want to.
That's why I think I'd be very open to
Yeah, I think
getting a final opinion at that point in
Yeah,
time when the
right.
project is.
And Fred will have a chance to talk, and his opinions are so extremely valuable. It would be interesting to hear his thoughts about it. But so I'm not too concerned about that. I think last time you were thinking of just taking those piers down, and I think Kurt was concerned that maybe you'd lose something with that. So I think that was an interesting comment. For me right now, so I'm kind of ambivalent about the old pickets. For me, I'm concerned more right now with sort of setting up this forecourt of columns down by Lake Road that we're reviewing as I think the key to the success of this. And as I said, you've really transformed your approach to this so dramatically that don't take this as if we're beating up on you. I really appreciate all the work you've done, and you're showing particular patience tonight, and I applaud you for that. I'm just wondering, one of the few things that's passing through my mind when I look at the drawings and the elevations studies is that I wonder if it might the final 3-dimensional reality of having all 3 piers on each side, 6 total, but if all 3 of them are the same heights, and then the intermediate gate, when it has that serpentine come down, is going to be lower than the top of the adjoining pickets. I just wonder if that's going to have a nice finishing alignment. I wonder if you might want to drop your actual wall segment pickets down to align with the lowest edge of your gate. Am I making myself clear?
I understand what
I
you're
don't
saying.
think from a security issue you're going to forsake that much security for that. And I could be wrong, but I'm just going to speak without, maybe I could just keep speaking kind of stream of consciousness here. And then also another interesting thing about the existing piers is that the 2 in the middle are higher than the 2 flanking ones, and sometimes that's done with success and so forth. I'm just wondering, every time you step down, you're going to be lowering your fence, and I know your security's an issue. So I don't know, where that happy medium is.
All the piers are at the same height. Could you use the microphone, please? We have people at,
Okay.
and as I'm not
sorry.
using it.
All the columns are at the same height.
I know. What I'm saying is I'm wondering if the reality of that is going to be the best possible outcome. I'm wondering if it might be interesting to think about varying it slightly as some kind of a step down. But I'm just throwing that out for discussion, because you want to continue your fence along Lake Road. Maybe the adjustment is that you lower the overall fence by a few inches. I'm just kind of interested in throwing that out for now.
Okay.
Maybe Fred, you've got some thoughts about this. Or maybe it doesn't matter, maybe you just let them run with it the way it's presented, I don't know.
Just, all these are 7 foot high. Yeah.
What I've always learned from you is that, it's nice to create a hierarchy.
You one, the 24-inch, and then the 16 and the 16.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying. Do we drop down 6 inches? I mean, that's
I
what
don't know.
we debated that in terms of
Did you
how
have
do you
that
how do you
conversation?
maintain the appropriate look? But
Yeah.
make a statement of the dominant left and right gate column, and then the subservient
secondary
left and
piers.
right, number 2 and 3 columns, so.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if 6 inches was enough, you know, in terms of how much do you really need to go to have the appropriate look, and I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah.
I took that into account and why those are those are only 16-inch columns. The ones at the gate are 2 feet. That's would be, you're talking about height, I'm talking about the width, making that transition, so that the ones at the gate certainly stand out.
Oh, may weigh in. I'm uncomfortable with some of the same things that others have been uncomfortable with, but I don't clearly see the solution. I have to share that with you. I don't have I share with Commissioner Swenson the double layering of fencing but for me, the answer is not necessarily removing the existing fencing. I think the charm of the property right now is that the existing fence and the piers do 2 things. One, they define the sort of a forecourt before the house that is established by the garage structure and then captured by the existing fencing and the piers, and it sets up really the entrance to the property at that point with the access roads coming off of Lake is a foreground, as part of the foreground to that point of entrance, which is between the existing piers. This is a very nice, very attractive, beautiful property, and that's what I think is very charming about it. And when the new fencing is, if it is put in, I think we've essentially lost that existing arrangement. And so you don't, you don't keep part of it because you can't even see it from the street. You'll see fencing, the new fencing, and what I'm uncomfortable about is losing what you have right now, which is so nice. And I understand your goal is to achieve increased security, so I understand why you wish to do it. The landscape plan, and just part of that same, the overall picture, landscape plan is beautiful. I think it's very nicely developed, but it also suggests to me there's very little yielded in terms of play area for children. It's really a very nice landscape. And in fact, even before having this plan, I didn't quite visualize how it would become a play area for children as far as being an appropriate use, certainly not with swing sets and climbing.
No, just a free, secure site with grass, so that if a child wanted to run and do whatever out in that open area, it was a secure area. Just to know that the children could be in that front region and know that they were safe.
Versus being on the lakeside, where
Right.
you'd want them in the front versus
Well, it just,
in the water.
that was the
I
concept.
understand that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there seems to be a very extensive agenda for making what I see as a marginal use area possible for children, and that'll, I understand the free use, but you have to wonder, children, you really want children freely going lots of places and you don't know where they're going. I would think they'd be under supervision in any event. That's not what we're here to decide, is how the children play. I'm just trying to look at the rationale that suggests making the fence in the first place, because with the fence comes the loss of the present charm of the property from my point of view. And so I'm uncomfortable about all of that. And so keeping or not keeping the existing piers is an awkward question either way. Keeping them, you get the issue of the double layering of fence and the inability to really have that as an interest to the property, because you've entered once with the new fence, then you come to now a second entrance, which is really has none of the importance that the present entrance has. In fact, it's redundant and awkward, and taking it away is part of further reduction of the present value of the property. The problem is I'm left with a real dilemma here, not a clear vision of what should be done, other than not doing anything. That would be a clear vision. It would not achieve your agenda, however. So that's a problem I have.
So, Fred, based on your comments, it sounds to me like you're thinking that maybe the fence along the property line shouldn't be there at all? Is that?
Well,
is that
let me just preface what I'm gonna say there is, I think a great improvement has been made between the last fence we saw and the current fence. It's been mellowed, softened, it's gonna be less of a barricade, a visual barricade, and the character has been made more friendly, I would say, and less opaque as the previous fence was. So that has gone in a good direction, but I still am left with the issue of the fence itself. And,
So are there any circumstances you can think of right now, and yes, I know I'm probably putting you on
Well,
the spot a little
yeah.
bit, but where you approve a security fence, kind of generally like they propose either, you know, what they have, removing columns, lowering it a bit, you know, just thinking out loud, is there some solution
Well, I think,
you might
you know,
think of?
lowering it enough to make, even if that's possible, to get it low enough not to be a visual barrier, would also, I think, go in the wrong direction for the owner, who was concerned at the last meeting about children being plucked by someone over the fence. And I have that, again, back to the issue that don't expect children would be next to a fence to be able to be plucked. The ideal solution from my point of view is that there would be another area for children to play, which was not out front on the road. That would solve a lot.
There's limited space on the lakefront side because of the bluff, and then you have the walkway down to the beach, and it's approximately from here to the screen, that's the lakeside grassed area. And again, it was just, it was addressing my concerns, my wife's concern for overall security, and my need for security, and my family's security. So that's at the bottom, at the root of this.
There's another one, letting out my thoughts here. Commissioner Berg mentioned something, the suggestion of lining up the new piers, if there are some, with the points, the garage corners, to maintain that relationship. Just want to suggest that if that were to be studied and developed, it's going to change the module of the piers on the street. We're now getting down to some details of something that I basically don't like in the first place.
I think theoretically, it's supposed to balance out there. The driveway is not perfectly parallel the lines. That's what we found from doing the surveys. And so I think it's visually it will line up, but it's probably a couple of inches off center. So to your point, I think visually it will, but if you measure it to within an inch, because of the way the driveway apparently must have been put in 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when they redid the garages and moved the driveway used to be apparently originally in the 1950s to the left-hand side of the property. And then the garages were built apparently in the 1970s. And so it's not, the driveway is not perfectly centered parallel with the lines.
No, I understand. I understand that. That's not the concern that it be, within 4 inches of accuracy, but that there is a visual relationship, which I think is what Commissioner Berg was talking about. And I'm looking at the site plan and just, and I'm going to estimate that those piers at the new piers at either side of the gates at the front would need to move approximately 4 feet north and 4 feet south to line up with the garage points, approximately, just looking at this visually. And what that does is to change the spacing between the piers that then remain or that exist on the street. What I'm getting at is that the whole visual, the elevation from the street would be different than what is shown, and it needs to be drawn. It needs to be drawn and evaluated if there is in fact a fence, which I'm not, as again, enthusiastic about.
may I comment? If we kept you would be right, if we kept those piers, they would be equally spaced in a different pattern. But we're
That's
not
right, they
keeping
would be
those
different.
piers. We're not asking for those piers. There'll be no piers there. We're just asking for that one pier to terminate the fence.
Yeah,
So
I
if
understand.
the fence moved over any, we equally make sections equally so that they're all symmetrical.
Right, and what I'm getting at is the equally is something that needs to be looked at because you're working with different amounts of space, south and north of the indentation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are not equal. So the challenge there would be to find something that is equal that works in both situations.
I'm gonna make that challenge.
And you just have to, it's something that you would have to study
Oh, yeah,
and see
absolutely.
what resulted. And then the space of the indentation gets bigger by the same token and may or may not relate to what you just did in the street.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, in other words, we have an unknown there.
You know, as you're talking about that, Fred, and as you said too, it's not like there's a cinch solution to this. It's a lot of design development. And I guess where I'm going with my deliberations is that I'm trying to figure out a way to maybe to get you your fence, to get the homeowner the fence for the security reasons and his desire for it. And it's a struggle. And as you were talking about setting up that module, maybe aligning it with the garage isn't the right solution, or maybe those existing posts or piers that are there, there's one that's a few feet away from the garage, and maybe that's the one to key off of and line up the one on the street with that one. And that way, at least there's that datum that that grid then will work through the property, and then alignment would maybe make more sense, because then the piers are more
Yeah.
similar points on the landscape. So actually, that might be, and this is kind of like design development, and I hate to kind of do this during our deliberations at this level, but it might be that is a solution. How do you feel, Fred, if he did put the piers, the three on each side, about there being the same height and having, that uniformity? Do you think that is, would that be an acceptable thing, or do you think it would be better to have a little bit of variation in height, or?
If there was a fence, which again, I'm not enthusiastic about, I think the same height would be better than different heights.
Okay, for
And
the new fence.
the issue of whether the new piers line up with existing piers or not is not
On the round.
high on my issue of problem,
Okay.
my list of problems. I have other issues that are higher.
Okay.
Kathy, because we're just at a quorum this evening, we have to be unanimous in passing any petition, or do we just need a simple majority?
You need a majority of the
Majority.
quorum of the board. So 3 votes
So we could
would
pass something this evening with 3 votes?
Correct.
Okay.
I just don't think it serves the house well to look at the house through 2 layers of vertical iron.
So to remove the existing fence that's there now? I'm talking
That
about
would be my preference,
The
if
metal-
we are to do
that's fine.
the fence of the street, which, you're right, Fred, I agree, we are losing something. The courtyard feels lovely, but if we are in agreement with, or, if he is going to put the fence along the street, I just can't see how the house is well served having 2 lines of defense to the street.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other thoughts
I
from
agree.
the commissioners at this point? Okay, I think,
I'm tending to want to try to work with the petitioner to achieve, a satisfactory result with a new fence. And that's my feeling about that,
I know, and.
so that's just to kind of, as a benchmark for him and for you and the rest of us,
Right, and the sense I'm getting right now is Commissioner Moyer doesn't want to approve the fence along the street in any form this evening, is that
Well,
correct? Or-
I'm having a lot of trouble getting that enthusiastic.
And we haven't
In
suggested-
spirit, I would like to see a solution
Sure.
developed that achieves what the owner wishes to achieve, and as an a good result in other respects
Would you,
as well. I don't know what that is, and
would you,
I'm not
think-
inspired for this, but I'm not inspired to, I think Commissioner Berg is inspired to try to find
And
this.
Well,
think-
and not particularly that it has to be done this evening. It's not, what I meant is that
I understand.
I'm trying to give him some sense of where we are as we deliberate over it. I would like to see us reach something, but maybe we can't do it tonight. Maybe it needs another tweaking or some other assurance that it's going to be as good as it could be.
and
And it may involve these other peers. Maybe that has to be revisited. Maybe the idea that they don't stay is part of the solution. And so it could be that it might be beneficial to the petitioner, because if it turns out that we decide to let you remove the peers, you gain you're not having to restore something that, you didn't want to in the first place. So are you leaning toward continuing this or some
well,
kind of a-
I want to, there's a couple things going on right now. The petitioner's been here twice, and I think that he's tried to incorporate our suggestions last time, and we very much appreciate that. Things ebb and flow, and so we might not be able to get to a solution this evening, and that's probably a little frustrating to you, and we understand that. I'm also hoping to give some direction and some understanding, what he would need to do next time. And right now, listening to the various opinions on the commission, we're not giving clear directions, and maybe, during this process at this point, we can't. That's what I was trying to find out from Fred, whether, in any form, it sounds like it may be possible to approve this security fence in some form. It sounds like Commissioner Moyer hasn't seen that yet, and we don't have an exact idea what that would be. I also know, Guy, that this is likely your last meeting tonight, so we're gonna have another set of personalities who will be addressing this petition next time, which, again, I know is frustrating as well. So, my question to the commission, is there some form with conditions, suggestions that, we either may approve this petition with conditions, and if that doesn't work, have it come back, or does the commission think that we need to, continue this for another date when, more
May I make a
commissioners are
comment?
here and maybe more favorable to different solutions?
I'm for approving it if the second fence is removed, with or without piers. And if the height of the fence by the street is lowered.
How much?
I think 6 inches would be great.
How much lower?
So we're talking about
6 inches?
6'2", 6,
That's
it was
fine.
at 6'8", so if the height was no greater than
That's
6'2".
fine, we approve that.
I mean, I'd be happy with that.
How about, would you,
Absolutely.
could you?
Is that okay with you?
We
Yeah,
can
we
live with that.
stipulate that,
Okay.
absolutely.
Guy, how do you feel
Well,
about this?
that was sort of what I was kind of hinting at before, is that maybe we could make some things line up, and to do that, we would be going down with the overall fence, because that would get you lining up with your serpentine gate.
So if we had a condition as to removing of the fence by the piers near the
Front door.
the property, and a condition that it's no higher than 6'2", and then some type of symmetry with the garage or existing piers.
Well, those are nuances, I think Fred hit on
Yeah.
those. It's hard to quite define up here while we, it takes some additional
Yeah.
systematic research, and maybe we do fashion this sort of quasi-approval, and we should ask staff what their opinion about this is. But Fred, you
Yeah.
have a thought?
Well, I think this discussion is going in a good direction, and I want it gives me a thought, which is that we were earlier commenting about the curvature on the gate and how it meets the fence. By the way, I think the curvature on the gate is one of the improvements that's been made since the last time. It
Yes,
has a,
Yes.
it announces where the entrance is. It has some grace to it and appeal as a gate and as a departure from the uniformity of a constant fence. We now know where the entrance is because it's featured. And what I was leading up to with the suggestion of lowering the fence is if it would line up with that lower part of that curve, whatever that is, by the way, it might be 6 feet, not 6'2", whatever that is.
That's,
Do you know
that's,
what-
That's the 6 inches.
that's the 6 inches that we're referring to, so that would achieve,
Well, if you brought, for example, the top of the fence to 6 foot and made that line up, make the gate and the fence depart at the same elevation in a smooth curve.
Now, the low part of the fence,
The
the
low,
low part would be now.
that would be the
with
6
curve,
inches?
We'll make that, the fence then will be the 6'6".
all uniform to that low point.
Yeah.
If you,
Which is
if
six-
you, thi-
is
if
it-
you think about that being 6 foot, we're talking about 6 inch, no,
Yeah.
that's
About 6'6".
That's 6'6" now.
That's the 6.
Well, if
So if you lower it
Came
to
to
6'2",
It's,
It's not a 7-foot high fence. Never was now.
I can't see the dimensions.
You know, Kathy, I would also like to add to this, if we're gonna be giving this kind of approval, can we include
Okay,
this,
from-
that a staff review of this, maybe as part of the condition, that if anything appears to need a little further discussion, that maybe it can be brought back? Does that sound like a good
I
direction?
think, looking at the drawing, the high point is 7 feet. It matched up the high point 7 feet, but what we're saying is we will drop down so that this is now tied to the 6'6" throughout the whole fence run. So this straight run of the fence to the left and right of the property will come down to the 6'6", and you have, the highest point is the center point of the gate itself, 7 feet right here.
And the columns.
Yeah, Mary Ellen, you wanted it
3 columns.
6, no higher than 6'2", can you take it at 6'6", or, yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
6'6" is
I mean, it's a little high, but, you know, 6'2" would be better, but
You know, when I look at your plan with my double glasses on here, I'm actually seeing you have a 5'10" dimension where your gate stops at the serpentine. So I think maybe what needs to be done is it needs to somehow be adjusted down, and right now I think that might be 5'10". So I'm not sure how to do
yeah,
this.
it does say 5.
If we're supposed to design this on the floor and give you an absolute, or if we need to have you adjust it to where it seems appropriate, and then maybe review it with staff.
Okay, Kathy, you know, are we putting the city staff in a trick box by what we're doing, or, I mean, did you have any comments that you want to add?
One thought that occurred to me, I heard a couple times that it sounds like you're contemplating some extensive, I think you used that word, extensive renovations to the house.
well, exactly, I mean, just
Okay.
bringing the house back to a loving state. It's been a
In
neglected house for
response-
many years.
In response to that, I'm wondering if the board wants to, is comfortable moving forward with approval of a front fence, it sounds like with some lowering, with some elimination of the columns, and maybe as part of the renovation of the house, then we come back and revisit that interior fence and the columns, leave that question unresolved, just because I don't know what the renovations, what the next phase of this project might be.
That is a good point. The only, I guess, concern I would have in that regard is if they didn't do anything, is it just there, and then Mary Ellen's concern has never been addressed? And so, you know, that we can't force the petitioner to come back and present a petition at some point, so.
Unless we made it a condition of the building permit that if,
Want to do
if no further petition was resolved before we close the building permit, that interior fence would need to be removed, or the piers, or whatever you decide. Part of the problem is that these drawings are so small. I think what we always encourage people to do is put each drawing on a single page and enlarge those. Many times you receive 11 by 17s, and I know it was difficult for you to give us that, but I think we're all struggling with exactly what is the height of this fence, what are we looking at, and what is proposed. So I think if you approve this, we'll want some very clear direction on what your expectations are.
Well, I'd like to speak in support of what Commissioner Swenson has suggested, and then making it correspond to the low point of the gate, which is 5'10" on the drawings. Suggest that the top of the fence align with that 5'10", and that the horizontal member that is supporting the fence maintain the same relationship to the 7, namely it would drop down 1'2". So you have the projection of the fence members above the horizontal in the same way that they are projected now, if you follow what I mean. The horizontal
The top of the fence now is 6'8", I believe.
Beg your pardon?
I think the top of the fence now is not 5'8".
I think we were told it was 7 foot, or 6'8".
It's under 7 feet.
Well, the top of the gate is 7 foot. I think the
Yes,
fence
yes,
is less than that.
but the fence itself,
Is, what, 6'8"?
it's, gosh, let me think here. 7, 6,
But
it's around.
well, I think the suggestion I would like,
I think it's
I
6. We
could warm.
dropped the top down so that the columns would be higher, and also that we could only go 7 feet with the top of the curve of the gate. So appropriately, we didn't keep a
No, I think,
7-foot-high fence.
I think the top of the gate can be whatever it is. It doesn't have to be aligned with anything. It's the top of the
But it's
gate.
gotta be
It's a
7
singular
feet is
feature.
the top
I'm
by code it
suggesting
can
that
be.
what would be important would be to have the top of the fence aligned to the lower edge of the
Oh,
gate.
yeah, absolutely.
And that is 5'10" on your drawing.
Never mind.
I can't feel your right hands here.
Oh, 5, wish I had, it's 5'10".
It's drawn just
I
left
think
of
it's
the
that
right-hand pier. It
horizontal.
says 5'10".
I think that 5'10" is to that
5'10"
horizontal
is what it says.
structure in the
No,
gate.
it's drawn to
This
the
is a
top,
nice
the dimension line is at the top of the gate, low edge of the gate, 5'10".
Now, what it, again, we don't really want to design this completely.
No.
And it sounds like, though, that we're moving in a direction that if the gate is, the fence line is lowered somewhat, we could see approving it. The question is, is it gonna line up with the lower part of the entrance gate, which is only at 5'10", and for security reasons, doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think it loses some of the interest, having it at a slightly higher height, either 6'2", which Commissioner Swenson suggested, I think is probably, it's not so much higher than the lower part of the gate that's visually jarring, but it's enough that there would be, appropriate security, don't you think?
I don't see a security difference, frankly, between
5'10"?
5'10" to 7. No, but either one requires a stepladder, and it's one rung on the stepladder.
If we were to say that the peak of the gate was 7 feet and we came down 10 inches, which would get you to the,
6'2".
6'2" as then the remaining height. That gets you.
I'm not working backwards. I'm looking at the gate, and it says 5'10" at the lower edge, and I'm suggesting that the fence line up with that.
Yeah, and again,
That may be the horizontal line of that, of our structure for the gate.
And the structure for the gate would likewise
Or for the
move down.
horizontal struts, I should say.
Can I poll the other commissioners on how they feel about it having to line up with the lowest part of the gate? Is that a condition that other commissioners would require? I personally wouldn't require it. I think having a little more height on it would be appropriate, but, you know, Commissioner Moyer has expressed, you know, possibly having this as a condition. I think that having a condition no higher than 6'2" during that would be a good condition, but I'd like the other commissioners' thoughts on that. Just try to move it in an effort to try to move this
Bring some
forward a
closure.
little bit.
I would want it to line up, because I think it would
Okay.
look as though maybe the gate was put in afterwards and it wasn't thought out enough if it was. So I guess I'm not helping with the solution that way, but
You know, I know we're lowering the fence, but I need to ask the petitioners, at 5'10", is it a fence you can accept?
I would prefer the 6'2" as the minimum.
We
Um,
want it,
So
we
So
want
the
it to
gate
be as-
itself was
only that much
reconfigured, so the ends were at 6'2", but it had a little less of an arc. Do we lose do we lose it picking up on some other feature, or? My architect's on the commission, any thoughts?
I think we're having a problem trying to design this in our minds, and I think that what this is doing is it's convincing me that we should probably give you the strong belief that we're in favor of your petition and are trying to strive to help you realize it. But due to the very prominent location of your house on this street, we also don't want to just let something slide through without doing our due diligence. So I would like to see, and I probably won't be here to see it, but I would like to see you go ahead and develop this out a little bit more, and address the heights. I don't know at this point if I want to tell you have to exactly meet that. Maybe if you drew it up a little bigger so it was a little bit more apparent and we could see it, maybe it would be okay. I think you probably.
I submitted a full-size drawing, and the village or city asked us to, I don't know why you don't have a full-size drawing, but they have been submitted with this application. And I appreciate the fact that at one time we were asked to make the whole property, make a drawing of the whole property in relationship to the house, which is absurd. We had to go back and this drawing that you see that's small here and at that scale, I mean, it gets to the point of an architectural section, as you see on top, drawn shows all the heights, shows the construction, and our details are all at a bigger scale for how the fence is put together. And I will tell you, as an architect, I'm stymied to say I realize you're looking at a small drawing, unfortunately, but
problem.
we've submitted
Yeah.
everything, and you know, it seems to me that I don't want to get into a debate of if it's 6'2" or 5'8". I think it's gotta be appropriate, and I think it's gotta be something that those bout of inches is quite a hardship to my client, if I may say so. We put this across, I understand. You've done a wonderful job in rejecting the fin. I went by the direction of my client, as a good architect does, and I certainly appreciate your comments that I'm listening to, because you're charged for making this to be an appropriate looking fence along this property, which certainly, that's the last thing I want to do is destroy the look or the monumentality that I feel this property deserves. The hardship is, I don't want to come down to the fact where we can be rejected for 4 inches or something of that nature.
Well,
The
I
detailing
think
of
there's,
theirs, you know, it's a hardship to,
you know, we've been focusing on the 4 inches for a little while now, but there seems to be more concerns by various commissioners, I think you've heard, than simply just that height. And I think we're at the point that we're kind of bouncing the rubble a little bit, and we're not moving forward constructively. And I have a lot of respect for Commissioner Berg and his opinion, and when he's kind of thinking that we're not making progress, you know, I tend to agree with him. There's been, you know, some direction given. There's been commissioners expressing certain concern. You're gonna have to, I think we're at the point where you're gonna have to take that back and mull that over a little bit. But I don't think we're making the progress tonight that we need to make. Kathy?
And I would just suggest that it would be very helpful to have these drawings on individual pages so that we can give you an 11 by 17 of just the elevation of the fence. If we could have a clear site plan that really is easier to read so that we can understand the relationship, the distance perhaps between the different layers of fence. That I think could go a long way with helping the discussion, so that we all know, are we talking about 5'10" or 6'4"?
Okay. Yeah, those are good suggestions. I know there's some materials that you believe you submitted that we haven't seen, and I'm sorry about that, but we only have the materials that we have before us. So, you know, unless somebody on the commission feels differently, I'd probably be looking for a motion to continue this petition.
Yeah, I agree now after hearing the summation. I think you're going in the great direction, and I'm sure you'll achieve the desired effect. But really, I think it's kind of silly for us to approve something when we really don't have it drawn up finally. And you'll want to do that anyway, to draw it up in final form. So I think it's probably only the best thing that you take the information back and do what you think is appropriate with your final alignment, and then let us review that. And I think in the long run, if you make even a small percentage of the progress you made since the last time, I think it'll be spectacular. So I think that I would like to make a motion that we continue the petition with the added notion that we are strongly in hope that the petitioner comes back with some more modifications and a final rendering of it, so we can know exactly what it looks like.
The motion's been made.
Second.
The motion's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Petition's been continued. Thank you.
Thank you.
is there any direction on that one column that I'm asking for?
You're just gonna have to
I don't
take
wanna
what.
keep drawing it over, and, you know, that one.
Yeah, I understand. You're gonna have to take the different comments that the commissioners made and try to synthesize it into something, you know,
And you know what you want to have.
And we would be happy to meet with you and try and decipher some of what was
Right.
discussed. I
The
think we
city-
have some sense.
City staff has a really good idea on what we're thinking and what our comments may mean, so you'll want to meet with them and just touch base with them on the direction, the
Who would I
direction
say-
the commission was giving you.
Who on the staff would I say? Who on the staff would you recommend my?
Both Megan and I will be happy to work with you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you much. All right, this is an opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission. Please come up, use the microphone, introduce yourself. Tell us what's on your mind.
I'm Linda Shields. I live at 985 Melody Road, and I'm here tonight just to thank Guy Berg for his years of dedication and service. Guy, you've been terrific. You've been dedicated. Your expertise, your input has made many positive changes, and I think we have a lot of structures in this community that are better for your comments. So thank you.
Thank you.
And don't go away. Stick around.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, you know, I'm acting chairman tonight, and I'm sure Kurt would be be much more eloquent than I can be, but obviously we value Guy's direction on this commission and his insights into all that he's contributed. And I know the city of Lake Forest is much better off for having his diligent work on this. So thank you, Guy, and hopefully we'll see you here with some petitions of your own.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
And we will invite Commissioner Berg back to officially recognize him at the next meeting.
That's right. So you'll have to show up for that. Okay, is there any other information from the city staff for this evening?
Nothing further.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner Berg,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Moyer. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay, this meeting is closed. Thank you.